What's up, everybody, and welcome to the next part, the next video of why Gaster is in Deltarune. Now, if you guys didn't see my first video, you can click the link in the description, the comment, or in the link above. That was actually on a different channel. If you guys want to go follow that channel, subscribe, that would be great. That is my Let's Play channel. I do, obviously, Let's Plays, Mario ROM hacks, a lot of Nintendo games, and some reactions. Also, the first video is there. So, why am I saying, or why am I doubling down that Gaster is in Deltarune? So, my evidence comes from both secret boss fights, from Deltarune Chapter 1 and from Deltarune Chapter 2. So, spoilers for those who have not fought those bosses yet. So, as you guys can see here, I have the one and only Seam. He previously was a court magician, and he talks about Jevil here. You could ask him about Jevil, I believe, after you beat him, or before, I don't remember, it's been a while. However, as you get his past, and we can look here, he says, he was a funny little man, once the court jester, I the court magician. A friend? Could I consider him a friend? Perhaps, perhaps not. But he was the only one who matched me in the games we used to play. So he spoke lightly about Jevil, how he was this funny, good person. Not exactly a friend, but one of those like a classmate friend. But one day he met a strange someone.
This is mainly badass flyers.
One day he met a strange someone, and since then he began to change. Now that strange someone is also alluded to not just Jevil's past, but Spamton's past as well. If we go to Spamton as well, and you play Deltarune Chapter 2 and you find out about his past, Spamton was a unsuccessful spam email salesman or account that couldn't get through to Lightners until one day he was approached by someone or called by an anonymous voice, and ever since that day, he became successful, but he also became isolated. He became estranged. Okay, he turned into the Spamton that we know. Going back to Jevil now, though. He started saying bizarre things that completely didn't make sense. Now, this is the most important fact here. Okay? But Seam, as we know him, is kind of a beaten up, like a rag doll of a person. Like, he is not who he used to be. He looks at life kind of, he kind of has a bleak outlook on life. Ever since he worked with Gaster, ever since his corruption. He goes, soon, Jevil here, he began to see the world as a game and everyone as its participants. Now this is key because Gaster knows, Gaster, Chara, Flowey, they all knew, that the world was a game. They knew that you, the player, existed, that you were the soul, you controlled their actions. By having something else other than them control their actions, made them realize that their world was not real. It was being controlled by someone on the outside. Therefore, it is a game. Their lives were not their lives. And with that reality shown, they broke. They became the villains, the secret bosses as we know them. He says something interesting here. He says that since that time, the strange words he said have stuck inside my cotton. Because he said those words were untrue but true at the same time, and that's why he says here, my view. That's why he says here, and my view of this world has become darker and yet darker. I mean, darker yet darker. Reflecting on these old memories, I think perhaps I miss playing games with him. Now, though, after you beat him, this is one of the lines here. He says, "You too will begin to realize the futility of your actions," saying as Jevil was just the beginning. It seemed like Seam knew a little bit more, or he fell, I don't want to say he fell into despair, but he is someone who started to think about Jevil's words, and he more realized that they were truth. At first they were untrue, and he kept thinking about them, they became 50-50, and then they became his truth. However, he didn't get corrupted with the madness, because he's never met Gaster, and he doesn't know the reasons why. He just kind of heard them secondhand, so he wasn't directly affected. But it seems that he knew that they were premonition for a greater, or technically a more evil omen approaching us. That, or Jevil could have said these things and we've never got the lines before, and he said them to Seam as he locked them away. The world, that could be alluding to the Titans as well. Maybe he knew or knows about them at this time. Obviously, this was in the first game. It was written a few years ago, but these are things that we can take that they are fact, because it has happened and we have more information now. Now let's go to Spamton, then we're gonna go back to Jevil. So Spamton, during the fight, he says a lot of things, but the most interesting thing he says here is when you first awaken him. So when you first awaken Spamton, he goes, "We're going to be big." The idea of the transfer was not transfer. You know, yes, he transferred a disc and he put him into his body, but that wasn't really it. I went a little map pad and game theory, and I was like, "Is he mean the transfer? Like, is he gonna take over Chris?" But then I realized what he meant. None of these things mattered. He wanted freedom, and in order to get freedom, he needs one thing. He needs your soul. And your soul is not Chris's soul. Remember, you, the soul, are you, the player. You are not Chris. You are not Frisk. You are not Chara. You are you. You are that soul. And Spamton knows about them. He knows about souls and all that. So, what makes this very important, obviously, is that he says, "I won't have to be a puppet anymore." Or so I thought. What are these strings? Why am I not big enough? It's still dark. So he realizes here, this is when he puts you in a corner. And this is the moment you realize that Spamton tricked you and he knows more. That's right. You. I need you. And I was like, oh man, he wants to be Chris. He's going to body swap with him. Nope. To be big with me. Very, very big. He is not talking to Chris. He is talking to you here. That is why he is facing you. And he is talking about you to the player. So big, we'll stand up tall and see past the dark, stand up with our heads into the clouds and look into heaven. Could be just a reference of light, because to him, he's been in the dark world all along. Heaven, it could just be alluding to light. I just need that little soul you have. He knows about souls. He knows you. That is why that line of text, he is looking at you. He understands. This mysterious voice told him about determination, about souls, about how their world doesn't matter. They are just a tiny world that is controlled. Their reality means nothing. And that is why Jevil is corrupted, and that is why Spamton is turned to who he is. So, obviously, as you fight him, he just wants, he goes, "Heaven, are you watching?" He's looking at a lightner. He might be looking for Gaster or something like that. It's time to make a very special deal. He is trying to escape his mundane, not mundane, but his broken life. And he realizes in order to do that, he needs a soul, and then he could, quote, be the main character. He could be big. It will be it'll be the Spamton show. And that's where Gaster comes in. He is the voice that has told them all. He is the one who's gone between realities. He is the only one who's ever been involved with the dark world. He knows about darkness. I talk about this in my first video. He has trapped himself in between universes, or in between light and dark and alternate universes, and there's the only ways he can communicate with people for a short amount of time. That is also why he is possibly the Chris. He could take over Chris when your soul isn't in it, because he is able to open up a fountain and then be able to expand his control, corrupt one person from that town in order to keep going, quote, living until he finds a suitable replacement, until he could get to Chris. And essentially, Spamton had the same idea. Other than that, you cut his wires. He realizes he is a puppet. Okay? But the most important thing, actually, when you kill Spamton, or defeat Spamton, excuse me, because obviously you don't kill him in pacifism run. He goes, now we get to this scene where Spamton in his original form is all tied up. So you see him tied up, and he goes, quote, "It seems after all I couldn't be anything more than a simple puppet." He realizes that he is nothing in his world, and he's just a simple puppet for us to control, NPC player to be. He's just a used person. That's what a puppet is. But you three, you're strong. With a power like that, maybe you three can break your own strings, implying that they are puppets. Let me become your strength. This is where he gives you the item. You got Deal Maker. And you got Shadow Crystal. Now, What he means by that, though, is we are puppets. We are being controlled. And he mentions that many times throughout the fight. He wants to get to freedom, and he believes with the soul, he will be freed. He sees us as puppets being controlled by that soul. Or he knows that they are. He knows their actions aren't necessarily their own. Now, let's go back to the Jevil fight. Let's look at his tech. Now, let's go here. Jevil, when you fight him, this line stuck out to me a lot, and it goes back to my theory. Now we can play. Quote, then after you, I can play with everyone else too. Implying that when he wins, he will take our soul. And now he can play with everyone else. He can escape his jail, escape the Darkner world, and get to the Lightner world, and he becomes it. He becomes the guy. Okay? So, after that, he goes, what fun. I'm exhausted. You kids tired me up. Now, I will sleep for the other 100 years. Unfortunately, you kids cannot have such a pleasant dream. He realizes their journey is just beginning, and it's only going to get worse. It's only going to get harder, and things are only going to get worse. From now on, a nightmare will awaken in your hearts. In the shadow of the night's hand, Lightners, can you stop it? This night is going to keep creating dark fountains, and then we know what happens according to Rysel. What's going to happen when the Dark Knight creates all these fountains? The Titans will roam again, the Darkners will become statues, so they lose their friends, and the light will live in abyss, or they will live in turmoil. Can they stop it? Who knows? But Jevil seems to be implying that is going to happen. No matter what we do, it is our fate. Can we defy fate? Maybe. That is the point of a game and being a hero. One interesting thing I did want to show you guys is actually when you beat Spamton, you get something called the Shadow Crystal. And you get it in both if you defeat him or Pacifism Run. But if you use the Shadow Crystal, as we're going to see here. So when you look at the Shadow Crystal, an important thing happens here. It goes, you held the crystal up to your eye. For some reason, just for a brief moment, you thought you saw the computer lab. Now, the Shadow Crystal might be something that is able to merge light and dark world, or that Shadow Crystal is what Gaster is giving to each person that is, quote, corrupted, who goes, I don't believe you. And he shows them the Shadow Crystal to show them that they are a world within another world. And with this, by using Shadow Crystals, they can either merge the worlds, or there's some type of way to escape the world, or you need the power of the soul. There's something with there. I haven't fully thought it out yet, but I thought this was a pretty interesting piece of information, and if there's more Shadow Crystal information, please let me know. Other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I really do appreciate Toby Fox, everybody, for discussing their theories in my last video, and I want you to know, what do you guys think of the secret bosses in this game? Did you really like them? Do you think that they're alluding to more? Who do you think met them to corrupt them? Who is this mysterious person or voice? Do you think it could be Rysel, who could be a Lightner? That's a theory I've been trying to juggle around in my head. I'm not 100% convinced that he's evil. But, he does have knowledge of the light world, and it seems that he's able to travel between dark worlds when everybody else from the original dark world and away from their fountain turns to stone. So that could be a theory I've been kind of working up in my head. Who knows? Don't forget to comment, like, share, subscribe. Please, this is a new channel. I really like making theory crafts and stuff, and obviously I love doing these things. I spend a lot of time researching them, and I know I'm not the greatest editor, but hey, what are you going to do? Alright guys, peace homies, see you in the comment section.